preparing, preparing the live stream. It is live almost. Okay. Live stream. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm Seth, Laura Eisenhower's friend, co-partner, colleague, sidekick. And this is her community platform channel that we are doing different things than she does on her normal, her big channel. That's her personal one. This is like for us. It's for people that want to, come up to the plate and try new things. And try new things we are. Right now, I have a friend of mine on here who we are going to do. So just a little background on what it is. I don't do one-on-one sessions with people anymore. I've stopped doing it because people are, I noticed a trend that kept happening is most people, they want to be the victim, right? They don't want to hear somebody, they don't want to feel somebody light a fire under their ass. Actually, who wouldn't want to feel that? But they don't want to be totally vulnerable. They just want a shoulder to cry on. And I got to a point where I was like, look, the only reason I am alive and that I am here and that I have some semblance of coherent awareness that's in alignment with infinity, it's because I earned it. I worked for it. It was a labor of love, but I earned it, and that's why a lot of people in the whole spiritual new age kind of community are like, oh, there's just like this magical thinking element of it involved. Not to say that there isn't absolute magnificent magical mystery beyond comprehension, but the very beginning stages, you could say, of knowing yourself as soul or beginning to know yourself as soul is something that's very much like a kung fu practice or learning to play an instrument. It's like doing the same thing over and over and over. And that's really what I did to overcome a level of trauma, of brutalization. I mean, I went through terrible, terrible things, severe drug addiction, federal prison. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And each and every one of these things in and of themselves created so much trauma that when they happened or immediately after they happened, I didn't have any semblance of understanding of how I would be able to move through it. Yet by chopping wood and moving water, I eventually started moving through it to the degree where I eventually figured like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually getting good at confronting my trauma and my problems and my issues. It's becoming a skill. And the more I became conscious that I was getting skilled at doing it, the more interested in it I became and the better at it I got. And then terrible things started happening. But my attitude was like, oh, wait, what if it just appears terrible? What if it's not actually terrible? What if it's really, even though it hurts, even though it's traumatic, even though it's this nightmare, what if it's actually something way greater than the appearance of all that stuff that's trying to teach me a new level of overcoming resistance so that I can embody the absolute essence of what it is that I truly am, that you truly are, that everything truly is. And so my attitude began to shift as I realized that my skill set, my internal toolbox skill set of learning how to overcome difficulty, trauma, struggle, all that became more tangible. And it got to the degree where I just became so in love with life that no matter what happened, everything was an opportunity for growth. And, since I got out of prison 5 years ago and been helping people and doing all that, I've met very few people that really want to do the work. Because a lot of them are like looking for, and no blame, no fault. Like our Western industrial post-consumerist society teaches us to get rich quick, right? Like we want it now. We want results now. Most people don't have it in them, like, right, the socially engineered conditioning of our times doesn't allow for the more virtuous aspect of our being, meaning it doesn't teach us how to be patient, it doesn't teach us how to trust in the greater process of life. It tells us we got to work our ass off, we got to make that money now, we got to get to a certain place, or else society doesn't deem us as worthy. And we're like this snake chasing its tail. Oh, I wonder why I said a snake. Anyway, we're like in this endless cycle of always trying to catch something that we're never going to actually be able to catch. And that's the illusion, right? That's part of the Maya, the whole thing of the unobtainium, right? It's just no way to obtain it. So my point in saying all this is that I stopped doing one-on-one therapy sessions with people for now because there were too many victims. People weren't, and that's okay. I planted a lot of seeds of people that who will absolutely come around. But for me, like, I want to be around people who are like, yeah, it hurts, it's wicked scary, but I'm gonna face it full on. Whatever I got to do, I'm gonna face it. And Lewis is one of those people. I mean, to the degree like that he's like, let's go live. Like, we were joking around. I'm like, oh, let's do a live therapy session. Or I don't even know how it came up. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, do you want to do it? And I'm like, whoa, that's a good question. Do I want to do it? Because, you know, doing live therapy with people, and, you know, like, this isn't a therapy session for him. It's one for me just as much as it is him, and for everybody else involved. So he has the cojones. He's got the balls, the courage, but tempered with the sincerity, the authenticity, the vulnerability to come on public, you know, a public station, and talk about the things he's experiencing, his personal issues and problems. And, you know, we go back and forth, and we do a mixture of, you know, it's like, and if you want, you can he'll ask questions too, just so people understand what I'm doing. But a mixture of a whole bunch of things are happening as we're doing this process. I essentially, through years and years of just training myself to be in coherence with my heart and brain and all the organs of my body, and then becoming conscious how a state of whole body, heart, brain, whole body coherence leads to the awareness of whole soul coherence. And the more you go into that, the more you start becoming conscious of how the systems of your body are literally interlinked with all of the star systems that are physically around us where we've incarnated. And I've spent so much time allowing myself to objectively just be conscious of that without ascribing meaning to it, without ascribing identification, without thinking I know anything at all. And actually, in a way, the opposite. As soon as I start thinking I know something, I'm like, ooh, okay, there's an opportunity to learn to let go even more. And so as him and I communicate, I'm in this, and I'm going to be getting more and more into it as we go deeper. Seth will still be there, but the bioelectric energy that allows Seth to be me, that allows me to be who I am, and I could say that about Lewis, everybody, we are all bioelectromagnetic impulses that are temporarily animating a human form. And we seem to be the last to know it as a species. That's why the reflection we're getting on this planet around us is like one big kind of imbalanced, unhealthy microbiome, like a gut with a whole bunch of pathogenic bacteria in it, instead of this nice balance of mostly healthy, thriving bacteria. And you do need that little bit of, you know, you don't want to call it unhealthy bacteria, but there's a balance of healthy bacteria and not so healthy bacteria that when that balance is there, that's where optimal health emerges. And right now, as a species, we're kind of more on the pathogenic side, but we're getting back to that. So well, I'm choking on my own spit here, right? Speaking of my pathogenic organism. All right. So I allow myself to just be that. And as a result of me being that, Lewis and I just communicate, we talk about different things that are going on, and I reflect back to the things that he communicates with the awareness of what's allowing me to be aware in the first place. And that in turn activates an aspect of him. And this gets more and more interesting as we go. So that's kind of a little bit of what's happening, and throw in like a lot of different multidimensional energy work aspects that there aren't even English words for. That's thrown in the mix. All kinds of really amazing things are going to happen. But he wants to do this live, so I am freaking excited. Like this is the first time I've ever done this with anybody, and I want to applaud him for wanting to do this, because it's being raw, it's being vulnerable, it takes a lot, and it is that willingness to confront the parts of yourself that most don't want to confront that allows the growth that many of us in the quote unquote spiritual communities want or know is possible or whatever. So with that said, thank you everybody. And Lewis, thank you, brother.
It amazes me, like from my perspective, it surprises me that you were so like impressed, or like wow, you're actually willing to do that. And to me, it is so incredibly not a big deal to be this way. And then I ask myself, why is that? What allows me to be that way? And it's because of a painstakingly awareness that I've developed over a 13-year period, where I hired an individual who had the ability and walked the talk of distinguishing who we really are, which some people give the word namaste to, which the being in me sees and recognizes, who I really am, sees and recognizes and acknowledges who you really are. And everything else is bullshit. Everything else is matrix programming. Everything else is trauma, and then the coping mechanisms that we learned to deal with that trauma. So everyone's kind of showing up in the world like tap water. People don't want to drink the tap water, and then and mostly because there's all kinds of crap in there. But if you could somehow go through the pipes and through the ground and through the reclamation center and through the river, the water source, and if you go all the way back up to the source of that river, it's pure and pristine. So the water that shows up at your tap is not a statement of the original qualities of who we really are, of the water. It's a statement of all the shit it picked up along the way that didn't belong there in the first place. And then when it finally comes out of your tap, if you're conscious enough, you get this thing called the water filter. But it's really not filtering the water. It's filtering everything that's not the water, so that you can be with the water again and drink it and consume it. And so I roll with that distinction so clearly. I'm separating, I know who people really are, and the degree to which they show up dysfunctionally with dysfunctional behavior, all they're communicating is where they picked up some crap along the way that didn't belong there in the first place. And I'm making that distinction first within myself and then with others. So it's very, very easy for you to poke and prod and address. I don't take anything personal anymore, because I know who I really am, yet I still have dysfunctional behavior. But you and I can be like side by side on the balcony looking at it and going, oh, you see it, and let's play with it. And I really feel that the stuff we're going to talk about tonight is going to be so useful, because so many other people are dealing with these things as well. And that's why I'm so happy to be that guy that steps up. And I'll just tell you a quick story of one of the way of something that happened in the acquisition of this ability, of this distinction. I actually almost killed a man to acquire this ability. And I know that's like a really messed up statement to say, but let me tell you,
today's day and age.
Let me tell you how it happened. So the guy I hired, one of the contracts that we had was that he was going to constantly be distinguishing who I really am from my dysfunction. And the degree to which people are not aware of that distinction and have identified with their dysfunction, when you go and poke at it, they think that you're poking at their being, but they're not. They're poking at your dysfunction. So I hired this guy to do that, and he said something one day that was so raw, that was so core. It was like a core issue that got me up out of my seat. I had him by the throat. His freaking feet were off the ground, and he was like choking, but he wasn't fighting me. He wasn't fighting. And finally, after maybe 5 or 7 seconds, I realized what was going on. I dropped him, I let him back down, and I sat in the chair and cried for probably 30 minutes, just stuff pouring out of me, just pouring out of me. And, he came up behind me he put both of his hands on my shoulders. Actually, it was just one hand, because the other hand was like massaging his throat, trying to work that back. And when things settled down, I looked at him and I said, dude, man, what was that like for you, man? What were you thinking? Of course, after apologizing. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't think you understand my commitment to honoring my contract with you and making sure you're free of this stuff. And I was ready to die. I was ready to freaking die. And I was thinking about my son and, that I might not see him again. And like, not too many people in the world are that committed. So I took that lesson with me that day. And then I started seeing people, most people are getting condemned, criticized, judged, ostracized, anything with the word "ized" at the end of it for their dysfunctional behavior, and very, very few and far between are looking at or distinguishing them and actually looking at their dysfunctional behavior as a communication, as an unconscious communication. It's like, look, I'm going to behave this way because I don't know what else to do. And I'm hoping somebody out there in the world has the ability to distinguish it from who I really am and can help me clear it. That's what I hear now when I see dysfunctional behavior. So you're one of the people on my list, my go-to people that has earned the positioning for me to bring this stuff to. And having laid all that groundwork, that's why it's so easy for me to be vulnerable and raw, because anything that's ugly or embarrassing or whatever, it's not me. It's not me. It's not who I really am. It's going to be like the tap water, some shit I picked up along the way that just didn't belong there. And I'm ready to release it. And when I get the emotions about it, it's like taking a huge spiritual dump, and I'm just like ready to evacuate my system. So the issues that I'm bringing to the table here tonight, one is a digestive one. And then the other one's a personal one, a personal relationship one with my daughter and her mom. And I think you're going to be, and when I describe what's going on, I'm going to be asking you how you dealt with it, because you're in a very similar situation, or you potentially. So on the physical side, the symptoms are, and by the way, a lot of the symptoms got accentuated after I did that holotropic breathing class where I was on my back, and the second 30 minutes of that class was nonstop sobbing. And then even afterwards, while I was sharing, I was sobbing. Just stuff was pouring out of me. It was pouring out of me. And the trick when that happens is you got to watch the mind, because the mind wants to start. So let's just say all this worthless or all this not good enough or whatever the label you want.
Well, tell everybody what it's, so just so everybody knows what he's talking about. He did holotropic breathing with Ra, who actually, I did an interview with him on this channel.
One of the best ever.
It literally causes DMT. You don't need to go to Brazil to do plant like our bodies produce all the chemicals, the chemical pharmacopoeia. They're like, it's, anyway, that's what he did. He went to one of those breathing sessions and had this total out of body, in the body experience. It wasn't,
there was no drug or anything I've ever done that was producing what I was experiencing. And it's, you know, the Jewish in me was great that, hey, I don't even have to pay for ayahuasca anymore, man. I can just like, I could do it. Like, we have everything. I mean, if ever, you know, people throw that statement, you have everything you need within you, including the chemistry, like that we've been going out of ourselves to get, when we can produce it ourselves. And it was a very intense experience. And so all the stuff was coming up. And here's the trick. When you do stuff that breaks emotions free, one of the most important skills and awarenesses to have is that you have to, and a discipline or an ability is to not let the mind run with it, because the mind standing in that stuff coming up is going to want to start creating scenarios and future scenes and pictures and dialogue standing in that stuff. And you just got to like put your mind on a leash and say, stop, I'm going to feel these feelings without a story behind it. All right. I'm just going to feel them, because I know if I feel them, I'm willing to feel anything if it's a thank God that's it on that. But I'm not really interested in feeling something if it's an oh God, not again. And that's the difference, you know, to get to thank God that's it on that. And so all of that was pouring out of me during the session, after in my sharing, and then for the next couple of days, I was just walking around like this raw, vulnerable, like a crab without its shell, just like walking around, like hoping nobody like eats me, and just like spontaneously crying. But I knew what was going on. So I had that advantage, and it was great. So my friend taught me this technique. When stuff's pouring out of you like that, and especially when you're working with someone, you kind of stop in the middle of it and you look at someone and you give them a little wink to let them know that you got it. I got this. I got this. So the physical, the physical universe expression, the symptoms were, I just haven't been able to digest my food. It started with like this funny buzzing sensation right below the rib cage, and it was so sensitive. I've never had this.
Can you put the camera on it just so I can see?
Like what?
The area where there's.
Yeah, I could even. So, and I got a picture here that I can refer to. So this area right here was lit up, and it was, I never experienced pain. Discomfort, yes, but never like full blown, like irritable bowel syndrome. I'm sure people would want, gastroenterologists, whatever the word is, would want to throw labels like Crohn's, irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulitis, or something, you know, whatever that word is, and maybe even leaky gut, which a local kinesiologist in Mexico, actually, I tested for leaky gut and I looked up the symptoms, and a lot of them were similar. So it could be that, but it could be that as the label.
That's
so this was all buzzing and lit up, and it was so sensitive that when the shirt touching my skin was like scratching. It was so uncomfortable, but not like painful, like, you know, knife stabbing pain. And I had to like either keep my hand pushing my shirt against my body, because just that little rubbing on the hair and the chest was driving me crazy. And then there was some what's it called,
indigestion, heartburn.
Not when you're bloating. There was some bloating, and then the lower section here was starting to, you know, so stuff wasn't moving, and there was definitely gas there. And whenever the gas released, either through farting or through burping, mostly farting, there was relief. So I knew there was a connection there. And then there was also there was some stuff going when I would eat. I would get lightheaded. So I know that there's a big connection with the microbiome being the bigger brain, and all the stuff that's coming out about the microbiome, and all of the dopamines and the serotonin and the hormones and the emotions and stuff. And so I was getting like dizzy, lightheaded, a little nauseous sometimes. So there was basically a 2-week period where I would say in the past 7 days, I have consumed maybe 3 bowls of soup and some water with lemon in it. And I fared well. Like I'm faring well. I'm not like, I'm not like starving, or I believe at the highest level, this there's a saying that if you don't choose to do it consciously, the human consciousness, and it gets to a point, your higher self or the bioelectrical, energy that you're talking about is going to set up a situation where you have no choice but to do it and face it. And that's how I'm relating with it at the highest level. But then there was the whole human part of me. Is like, holy shit, man, am I going to like ever be able to eat again? Am I dying? Do I have cancer? Do I have like leaky gut? And the stuff's making it through the permeability of the walls and getting into my bloodstream. Like, am I going to die? And I went through all that. It was like one unbelievable roller coaster ride. And I also know that I was incredibly stressed. I was in a situation where the people I was working with, I had seen enough and realized that despite my efforts of trying to illuminate and bring certain references and and explanations of why things were happening the way they were, and they just were not receptive to it. They were there's no judgment on them. Although I certainly went through, when we go unconscious, that's when all the matrix programs comes over. I'm going to pause this for a second to tell you, my daughter used to live in the other room next to mine, and she had a boyfriend that used to come over, and we had lots of spiritual talks. So what I'm about to tell you, I was able to do with them because of all the talks that we had. So they were fighting viciously, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I got up and I walked into the room and I said, do you guys understand that the very fact that you're fighting like this means that both of you are unconscious right now? Because if you were conscious, you guys would be talking about the emotions, and you would be by each other's side looking at the stuff that's coming up, instead of letting the dysfunction and the trauma do the negotiating, which is what everybody else does. And they just both stopped and they were looking at each other. And then I walked out of the room. And it was very interesting, whatever they did after that. So that's a Louis original. Like, if you're fighting, you're unconscious. And so I went unconscious a lot during this process, and my mind was ripping them a new asshole. It was making them wrong. It was, yeah, how dare you? And like, you did this. And then I would just finally like, whoa, shit, it's all me. Like, it's like, and then Seth, you came into my ear and said, because you have that incredible perspective. It's anytime you see anyone outside of you displaying dysfunctional behavior, the matrix knee-jerk reaction is to make them wrong and fuck you and all this stuff. But someone who's done a little bit of work will do something different. They're going to go, wow, what unresolved aspects of me is this character outside of me reflecting back to me for me to look at? Because if we truly are the creators of our own reality, that means all the people, the relationships, the drama, the trauma, the things, everything. It's I can never prove that we're the creators of our own reality. I just think it's a wiser place and a more powerful place to play from. So I play from there. And when I become conscious, they're all off the hook, and there's no one to bitch at or complain at, including myself. And there's just for me to start digging and looking for those unresolved qualities that were so disdainful for me to witness them displaying. And I get to look at it. Where do I still got some of that in myself? So I do believe that although if you went to the allopathic matrix model, they would prescribe this drug and this procedure and put this label on it. But it was referencing that Louise Hay's book, where she like had for every physical label, there was always an emotional counterpart. It was literally, I can't stomach this anymore. I cannot stomach what's going on in the world. I can't stomach what's going on in groups that I'm with. I can't stomach everything that I'm feeling, the atmosphere that no one's immune from it, and so I think it just finally caught up to me, and it was a real spiritual slap to wake me up. And so that's the level when I'm conscious that I'm working it at. And I'm starting, today was the first day that in 7 days that I was able to eat some food. A great answer came to me in a clearing one time, a couple days ago, 3 days ago, to start consuming the activated charcoal. So I went to Whole Foods and got Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Coconut Activated Charcoal. Cool. With it had great stuff in it. And who knows, maybe it's all placebo. I don't know. But I started consuming that with my meals, and I was not getting the bloating. I'm starting to move I'm starting to have some bowel movements, very poor and irregular right now, but something, I'll take anything at this point. And it's very tarry and very horrible smell. And when I say tarry, I don't mean the video game Atari, although this very well could be a video game that we're in, a huge virtual reality. Yeah. But so that's starting to happen. So I'm not overeating, because I don't want to clog up the system until the block's removed. I got a couple of I saw a guy 2 days ago. I got some frontline doctor action. Maybe hopefully be able to prescribe. It's a place to prescribe some ivermectin. What's it called? Yep. Right. Shows you how little I know about this stuff. And so they prescribe that, because you need a special prescription to get it, and only certain pharmacies carry it. And then my friend told me about that. Just go to the feed store and, tell them you got a horse that's got, some worms or something. And it's the same stuff apparently. So I got a feed store down the way I'm going to check out on Monday. But that's in case it's parasite or, worm related, because I was in Mexico and I was eating some funky street food. But my relationship with these things with these answers that come in, whether it's the charcoal or the ivermectin, that's not how you say it. Is that
ivermectin? That's close enough.
Ivermectin. Yeah. Or this healer that I'm going to see on Tuesday. That's my go-to guy, but he's not available until Tuesday. He's booked like 3 months out now. It used to be 2 weeks. Now it's 3 months, because everyone's coming to him like they were coming to you, the victim and fix me model, instead of like wanting to learn how to fish. I really believe that these answers coming to me they're only coming to me because of the inner work that I've done that is allowing these answers to come to me now, as opposed to, you're so lucky you found the charcoal, and that's really allowing you to eat. And I'm like, well, actually, you probably have to have someone by the throat with their feet off the ground for you to learn how to have that charcoal show up in your world. It's all backwards. Everything's backwards. Like, they're given credit for this when in fact it's from this, it's from the inner work that allowed this physical universe answer to show up. So I'm actually, the emergence, I was going to go to the hospital, and then all the fear that came up going to the hospital, they're going to jab me, they're going to, blah, 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 blah. And you already know there ain't no, although they might have a nice Band-Aid, but it wasn't going to pull the plug on it. And I'm still not out of trouble yet. Like there's still like, if it was a level 9 or an 8, I'm still floating at around a 3 or a 4
of pain.
No, of the symptom of not
overall
not pain.
symptomology.
Yeah. Like it ain't right that I'm not pooping, and my urine's restricted. The flow is very restricted. Like that. Like it's just got to be pressure from I guess prostate, but I've never had this problem before. It only showed up like 2 weeks ago, 57. So it's never been an issue. So that came out of the blue. And then there's this muscle on my neck, and I do a lot of stretching. I got a monk mode stretching and meridian movement routine that I do. And I'm having a difficult time handling this. And it's like, it's been a pain in my neck, like dealing with all this stuff, literally. And a little later on in the call, we'll go into the stuff that's going on, with my daughter. So on the physical side, I got those symptoms. I kind of went into the roller coaster ride of being conscious with it and what it's like being unconscious with it, which is a really good contrast to create, because I think people can relate with that. So I would stop right here, come down off of it's not a soapbox. It's really just a little, it's a little foot meridian. Like it does reflexology when you're talking but it's free. So I call it free flexology. So you can respond now as to what, like, where would we go from here? Like in a typical therapy session, I gave you the symptoms. I believe it's emotionally related. I believe it's my higher self, like, because I didn't do it consciously. I was eating like an idiot. I was totally unconsciously eating. I was binging, and enough's enough. It's like kind of like what the planet's doing right now. What would you do with that as far as any advice or any references or abstractions, generating principles that you can share?
Where do we go? Oh, where do we go now? You can ask the great Axl Rose. Sorry.
But I thought you were doing the older one, which is where do we go from here?
Oh,
Now that
yes.
all of the blah, 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 blah.
That's perfect. So the first thing, okay, so there's so many different dimensions and levels and ways to look at and sense into what this could be, right? But the thing that overall, more than anything, that was like, boom, to me, to my perception, was this area is so much around power, self-acknowledgement, feeling empowered or not. It's like, this is the center of ego, you could say. But ego, ego is such a bad rap, right? Like, ego's great. We need the ego. We are a mix of self and selflessness. And just like in a healthy gut, right, a microbiome, there's that mixture of mostly good bacteria with a little bit of unfriendly. That's what they call it. Friendly bacteria and unfriendly. So there's mostly friendly bacteria in an overall healthy gut, but you need that little bit, but it stays in balance. It keeps it in check, and they work.
It serves a purpose.
Yes. It's like chaos and coherence. The two, we need both. A lot of people are like, oh, we need both forces. And it depends on what level of perception we're talking about. Because yeah, on a more 3D here down on this planet, the extremes of black and white, night and day, light and bright, all those are much more amplified to the degree that we're not conscious of where they're coming from. At some point, everything comes from the same. But down here, the extremes are such that it's hard to know where you stand in all of that stuff sometimes, but that's where the growth is. That's where the potential, the possibility, the ability to move beyond what it is that jams us up or keeps us stuck. But again, I don't know your exact situation, but it feels like to me, you're not being seen or heard, or something isn't to your you're in your external environment. There's something that isn't acknowledging the illumination and the possibility and the potential that you represent. And that is causing you to have a difficult time digesting life, digesting what's going on.
Wow.
Is that, are you, again, are you in a
Don't hold back, bro.
where
Don't hold back.
all right, so that's what's going to happen, right? If people
You are going to ask me a question. Am I in a position?
Oh, yeah. Oh, are you in that situation? Sorry, the thing cut out. I don't know. If that happens, just wait a second. I don't know why it's saying my internet is.
Yeah, and I got something up with my Wi-Fi adapter that it craps out once in a blue moon. And if that happens, just pause the recording. I'll get you on the phone. I have a little trick that gets me right back online, but it might be 5 minutes.
We'll go with the flow, however it goes. So to me, that's the big, there's all kinds of other things that I can and will say, but the major thing is you're in an extreme situation for you right now, a situation where you are not being seen or heard to the degree that it's just not working for you. You're not digesting.
Right.
You're getting stuck, you're getting inflamed, you're getting, it's a lot of intensity and pressure.
Yes, a lot inflammation. Like there's inflammation on the urethra tract. There's inflammation on my stomach. It's pushing. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Is that what's going on? Are you in a situation where you're not being seen or heard or felt, or your gifts aren't being acknowledged or something like that?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. And the funny thing is that when I'm conscious, I don't need anyone. Like
Right.
I use the metaphor of an eagle. An eagle doesn't need anybody. It just can do its thing. It hunts. It's the king of the air. And when it wants to mate or if it wants to fly with someone, it's like, well, I'm flying this way. You want to come? All right, let's go. But if they don't want to fly with you anymore, it's like, all right, see you later. It's like when I'm conscious, I don't need anyone to acknowledge me or this or that, but it just goes to show the degree to which I must have been unconscious, where it's like, man, these people aren't listening to me. They're eating soup with a fork and I got the spoon and they don't want to hear about the spoon. And then with another group that there's absolutely no space to share. And every time I do, I get the kibosh down and I shouldn't need that either. When I remember who I really am, I don't need anything else. That's the thing. When you know who you are, you're self-sufficient, you're self-governed, you're self-directed, you're selfish, but capital S, like the self, like, and you're conscious and you know how to, you respond, you don't react, and you work things out consciously, but it just goes to, that's it. If ever there was a time in humanity where everywhere we turn, there are things trying to make us unconscious, and the food, the water, the air, the energy, the Wi-Fi, the electromagnetic stuff. It is really, really freaking hard to be a human being these days, bro. Really hard, especially people who got skills and tools. This is the most challenging time ever to be, I say human being, but now that I understand what that means in legal terms, human means monster. Like, so I'll have to find
Really?
just a living being. It's hard to be fully expressed these days with all these. I sent you a video on WhatsApp. I don't know if you're able to play it. It's the video. Are you able to play something if I have it on WhatsApp, like where everyone can see it?
I probably can.
This would be worth pioneering. And I'm not even going to say anything more until you can either figure it out or say, no, I can't do it. And then I'll just tell you verbally.
Through WhatsApp?
WhatsApp, yeah. There was a quote by this guy named Schopenhauer. He said, and most people don't get it the first time. He said, the task is not to see what no one yet has seen, but to think what no one yet has thought about that which everybody has seen. So it means that everyone's seeing the same stuff, but not everyone's thinking the same thing about it. And so when I see a video like this, yeah, it's a cute little rescue video, let's see if you can play.
All right, let me so screen share maybe, right?
Could be screen share. Oh yeah, you should be able to screen share and then go into I've done it before. You click screen share and then it'll show you all the little mini windows that are open. And if your WhatsApp window's open, you should be able to go and click that YouTube link.
Meaning, oh man. Wow, you're really good at that. I didn't realize that we could do other things.
Well, depending on what it is, we may have to turn the live thing off. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not doing it, but
okay. So anyway,
tell what it is. Yeah.
The video is of this guy that goes to the ocean and these turtles are completely covered. Every ounce of space on their shell underneath their arms is covered in barnacles. They got all these attacks. They can't even move. In fact, some of them, they can't even retract their head. They're like defense mechanism because there's barnacles on their neck and it can't move. And And so he takes them out of the ocean. He chips away all the barnacles. It's like the tap water story, and sets them free. And it's like humans these days, there's many matrix barnacles and programs that, and even legal stuff, as the stuff that you and I are getting into.
Yeah.
There's so many attachments.
People call natural law, which isn't actually natural law, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they can go look at your, if they can find your Facebook quote, not quote, that passage you sent. Beautiful stuff. So we have all these attachments, emotional, trauma, all these attachments, and we're trying to live our lives with all these attachments. And so, the ability to remove these attachments is in direct proportion for our ability to fully express. And this whole flow right here started from my observation that it's almost impossible to be to fully express these days, because everywhere you turn, there's metaphorically barnacle attachments that are just attaching. And how many people are walking around with entities that have like taken over their brain and given them suicidal thoughts, and it's not them. And so what I wanted to tell the audience here is that you're not those attachments. You're not those barnacles. I am not those attachments or those barnacles. And once you can distinguish that, then let's just get to work and remove those things. So you don't have to beat yourself up anymore. You don't have to feel bad. It's like you fell, and it's not some they out there that did it to us either, because the outer world, the physical universe, is a congruent expression of our internal world. And so to me, the only purpose of the physical universe is to see where I am. And it's just a reflection back to me to let me know where I'm at inside. And if I want to change what's happening outside, do I go and try to manipulate the physical universe, or do I go inside and change from where the physical universe comes, originates? And so this stomach thing that I got going on, it didn't just arrive into the physical universe. Like which came first, this pen or the idea for this pen? And of course, the answer is the idea came first. The idea is non-physical. So everything starts as non-physical and then goes through a creative process and then ends up into the physical universe. So to me, the correct way to relate with the physical universe is as a barometer, as a measuring stick to see what I've created. And if the movie screen's the last place the movie shows up, it goes through this long creative process. And so the screen is the last place the movie shows up. And if you're a producer and you're watching the screen of your movie and you see something you don't like, do you go up with a pair of scissors and start cutting up the screen? Or do you go back into the projector? I'm sorry, do you go back into the editing room do you go back to the movie set where it was, do you go back to the screenplay where you got to go back to the original idea that someone had that got this whole creative process going that resulted in the arrival of that movie into the physical universe. So like, how many people are pondering the question, like, what is the nature by which physical reality shows up? I got enough Seth books and many other books on my shelf that have given me insight into that. Everything's questionable now, but let's make change where change begins, in the ideal realm. So I've been really looking at the ideas, and like, this has been an interesting thing that's been happening. I got a couple of characters in my movie right now.
Hold on, it cut out on my end right after you said I have enough Seth books.
Okay, so are we still rolling now?
Yep, you're good now.
All right, so I said, the Seth books, the formula that Seth gave, that Jane Roberts channeled back in the 60s, 70s, is what quantum physicists, at least from what I've read, it's what they're using to push the quantum envelope of the nature of reality, and they even said, we don't care if this is an alter ego of Jane or if this is her subconscious. We don't care where it comes from. It stands on its own. And so I've now been looking at my situation and then anything else in my life is like, where's the idea off? Where am I off in the thinking and the feeling realm. I love Joe Dispenza's formula of clear intentions plus elevated emotions is what the universe, the quantum field is listening to and what it will give back to you. So you want to make sure you charge your spiritual boomerang with some real, like mastery to me is being in control, is choosing my thoughts and my emotions versus just being a sucker along for the ride where my trauma and my past and is choosing it for me. Because if you don't make up your mind will make you up. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to put that puppy on a leash and tell her what to think. So I've been noticing where my mind has been like chewing up the furniture. It's been crapping in the corner. Funny thing, actually, my daughter has a puppy, and he's 8 months old now. And he came to the house, and we were wondering when's he going to lift his leg when he pees. And I said, I just saw him. He lifted his leg right on my chi machine in the house. Like it was the first thing
Your chi machine
that he lifted his leg on. So I guess it's the pee machine for him. But anyway, so to take control, to be a master of your thinking and your thoughts takes a lot. And I have not been. And this is the result, I think. So I have
not that you haven't been. I would say just the opposite. It's actually that you have been. And what is happening is a result of having done it. Now, you may not consciously be aware to the degree that you are conscious of the work you're doing, but you're still doing it regardless. Because I've known you, I don't know, not that long, but a
year and a half.
Year and a half. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've known you a year and a half. And just the communications that you and I have had have demonstrated to me that you're doing it. Okay. It's not like it now, obviously there's different levels of commitment, right? Different levels of devotionary commitment that you might give a value system to,
right?
But you're doing the work.
I'm on the field.
You're out on the field. You're in the field. The field's in you. You're conscious of that. All of it's there. I love it. It's just ego stuff, but you're looking at the eagle, right? And the eagle is such a perfect metaphor, like you said, because in Native American terminology, the eagle flies between two worlds. With his eye on both. Wow. At the same time. You, as a result of the work you've been doing with me and on your own and with others and everything that, since even before you met me, you are digging up aspects of you that are in your subconscious and you're stirring them up. And you know how it is when you go in there and you start stirring stuff around and moving it, there's parasites, there's things in there that like, hey, I've been in here sucking this life force for a long time. And now you're trying to move me around, leave me alone. No, it's going to bite harder.
Right. It's fighting for survival.
So you have one of two options. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm not going to touch you. Or no, this is my domain. This is not mine. This is the domain of me in my totality. This is the domain of me in a more full pronunciation of my divine proclamation, you could say, your divine birthright, which is you're not just living as this person 9 to 5, trying to make money, trying to survive. All these upper glands and centers that represent the virtuous, the conscious, the empathetic aspects of your human being. And I know you, and I know that you're actively, not passively. I mean, sometimes you're probably a little passive because it's a mixture of both, but you are much more actively pursuing the ability to more fully, because like I said earlier, right? Like we are bioelectricity temporarily animating a human form. The problem is even though that's what's happening, most of us aren't really fully animating our human form. We're in it, but just barely. And in fact, most of us are just like right up in here. much less all through the rest of our being. And the gift of being in this body that no one or hardly anybody has ever taught us is how to be in this body. And you have the ability to do that. And it's so simple. But for most people, it's so boring. Like, even just talking about it, they're like, yeah, right. I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to turn on the video games. But it's really just breathing, just feeling.
You learn that with the holotropic class, that all you're doing is there's nothing fancy. Just breathe, rhythmically breathe, and you do it long enough and something's going to happen. And you've been saying that, like, if people just understood, that's one of the matrix programs, fast food, microwave thinking. Like, well, I breathe, I took 10 breaths and I didn't feel anything. No, it's like, but you stayed the course, and now you got access to gateways that you've personally experienced, and then you meet people and the answer that they're looking for is if they just created enough momentum and stayed the course. And of course they don't in the beginning, hopefully I think everyone will cross the finish line eventually, but then there'll be another race.
But Joe Dispenza says something to the effect of, when you practice something, you do it, and right when you get to that point where you start getting bored with it, that's the point where you're getting close to a breakthrough. And a lot of people give up at that point before the breakthrough ever happens. And that's why it's so important that we persevere in those moments, right? And so probably in many ways you've come to this place, it's not boredom, but you've come to a place where you've muddied up the waters, the recesses of your subconscious, pushing that fluoride and all the tap water chemicals, just moving them right around, swirling around. They're all over and they're not happy about it. And it's creating
a
lot of discomfort.
Right. And so I was going to, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No, you please.
So right now, as I'm talking to you, instead of listening so much to what I'm saying and allowing your mind to interpret it, try to let that go to the best of your ability, just for a few moments. And instead of analyzing the words that I'm saying, just allow yourself to feel the vibration that the words themselves are actually being created from. Because that vibratory frequency is actually more closely related to the source of what it is that is allowing all of this to happen at all, both in me, in you, in everyone. And the more you choose to just feel that vibratory frequency, whether it's just by listening to my voice, whether it's you just making, and nothing fancy, just really, but with a lot of love, a lot of self-empathy, making a sound or feeling the vibratory sound of what it's like to truly love yourself and emote in the vein of making a frequency, a tone, a sound. And as you're feeling that sound, that vibratory pulsation that is there, but you're doing it consciously, you're consciously making a sound, or you're listening to the sound that's coming out of me, and allow your body to feel that. And as it feels it, relax into it. Totally just relax your entire being, so that there's nothing but the being in a state of relaxation. You're just breathing rhythmically, and you're allowing your awareness to gently be in the area that's causing you the most discomfort. You're not hyper obsessively focusing on it. You're just allowing yourself to gently be aware of it. And the more you can be aware of the place where the pain is, from a place of self-empathy, from a place of calm, of gentleness, but keep focused on it. See, it's this in-between point of passivity and activity. It's like you want the body to be so relaxed and so calm to the point where it's almost about to fall asleep, yet at the same time, paradoxically, you're keeping your mind wide awake. So the body just it's so relaxed that it wants to go to sleep, but you're keeping your mind wide awake and totally, totally focused on a specific area. A thought comes up, it's okay. You go right back to it. And you just keep doing this over and over. And eventually, something begins to manifest in between the space of total relaxation to the point where you're about to go to sleep and hyper awareness, where you are super conscious in and around your body while your body's about to go to sleep. When you can keep those two extremes of those two elements going, then something forms in between them. A doorway, a literal, actual doorway begins to open up inside of your subconscious, where you become conscious of something that you were not previously conscious of, though it is in your subconscious. It's there. You just weren't fully or more fully conscious of it the way you have the potential to be.
Are you saying an answer or a structure that would reveal it?
It's a
feeling?
feeling. Yes. It is literally a feeling. So when you are in that super relaxed spot, right? When you're super relaxed, but you're super aware and you're aware of the pain, if you can keep relaxing into the pain, which is kind of sounds weird, right? Like, why would you focus on your pain? But the idea isn't to, or the intention isn't to focus on the pain. It's to focus on what's holding the pain. The area around the pain is to relax that so much around it that the pain doesn't have anything to stick to. And because all the pain is really is just stuck energy. It's stuck aspects of the energy of your body that has been created from living in a state of incessant fight or flight, right? You've been in fight or flight so much that you've activated the body's own chemistry production to the degree that you maybe were producing a little too much of a certain amount or group of stress hormones than you normally do. And the creation of those stress hormones cause your body to overcompensate in that one particular area, usually in your adrenal glands, but then it goes into the other organs of your body to the degree where beep, 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 red light comes on, alert, alert, and your body can't take it because you said it before, you know, there's so much going on right now with these bodies that we're in that we haven't been able to adapt to it. You know, the artificial aspect of an unnatural, or, you know, the artificial aspect of reality is superseding or seemingly supersede the organic aspect of our human existence to the degree that we aren't physically able to keep up with it. And so our body takes a hit. And while most would feel like, oh my God, that's helpless, I'm hopeless, how am I, like, the amount of all the artificial everything, food, air, water, invisible microwaves, everything, when you think about it from your human self that overanalyzes everything, it seems so overwhelming that you feel like, how could I ever get my body to be able to adapt to handle that? But that is the gift. That is the beauty, is being pushed to that point where it seems like there is no possible solution. Because when you get pushed to the point where it feels like there is no possible solution, then you have two options. One, die, right? Whether it's a slow death or an immediate death, or do the impossible, grow wings and fly. You adapt in a way with something that you didn't even know was there, but you never would have found out it was there had you not been subjected to such adversity. So the pain, the trauma, the unbearable is so much, it's so overwhelming that you, as Lewis, as the person you are, just can't deal with it. And you, in whatever way it is, you cry, you beg, you scream, you ask, you get angry, you enrage, you whatever it is, however way, but you do it sincerely. You do it with all your heart and soul, and you let whatever this invisible energy is that is animating your being, you let it know that you, as this person you temporarily are, you don't know what to do about it. And you demand, you ask for its intervention, and you do it with sincerity. Then all of a sudden, you do that enough times, when you least expect it, something happens. Something literally comes out of the invisible, and it is there, and it is manifest. And you, like the eagle that is flying between two worlds at the same time, are conscious of the visible physical world that's below you, you could say metaphorically, and the invisible, infinite, exponential world that's above and all around you.
Wow.
And here's the crazy thing about it is every single human being has this in them. And every night when we go to sleep and every morning when we wake up, our brain waves go. Joe Dispenza, I love his work in this because he spells out, I don't even know him, I'm not even going to try to say it, but you go from
the waves.
Yeah, it's like a high beta. Most people,
Yeah.
I mean, most people,
Monkey brain is high beta.
You're over analytical in your prefrontal cortex right here. It's beta. That's what it is. You're in a beta. It's, most people spend most of their life in a beta state.
And that's fight or flight with
well,
but chronic.
There's a healthy beta, like you,
right?
But there's coherent beta, right? So beta is like right now you're alert, you're aware. You and I were, we were just more kind of like alpha going into
beta,
but now we're more beta, right? We're alert, we're healthy, but we're smiling and we're calm and we love each other and we love life. Yes. So there's a coherent aspect to the frequency that we're creating as we're communicating. Now, at night, when you're going to sleep, you're going from beta to alpha to whatever comes next, theta or something, then into delta. Okay, delta is the one where your body is it's where you're totally asleep. But you go from, I'm awake, now I'm on my pillow, my eyes are shut, I'm going to sleep. You go through all those, and your consciousness goes to sleep with your body. And the reality is that it has the opportunity to stay awake while the body goes to sleep. And all that is practicing a habit. It's a skill. It's something you get good at. And what happens when you get good at doing that is you literally, like you had the experience with the breathing, with holotropic breathing, how you go, your body starts produce, your pineal gland creates metabolites of DMT, of dimethyl, whatever it is, And it creates all kinds of other metabolites too. And that's what causes these other dimension, they're like portals to other dimensions, other worlds, right? They're literal stargates, you could say. It's like what they actually are, if we want to give a definition to it. When you find that sweet spot between physically waking and sleeping, where your body goes to sleep, but your consciousness stays conscious, you suddenly become conscious of this world that is your true essence in its purity, you could say, or unadulterated or uninfluenced or not fucked with, not tethered with, not, you know, there isn't any of Lewis from this life in there. There isn't your issues, your self-esteem, your doubt, your triumphs, your tragedies. None of that is really even there. What's there is the purity of what it is that actually incarnated into this form to begin with. And when I first did this, it wasn't going to sleep at night. It was during the day. I was just daydreaming like I always do, and I always encourage everybody to do, you know, just like wondering what's possible, but with awe and wonder and like a little kid, right? But with the integrity of a mature adult, you know, like that's the next level of relationships. It's a whole other conversation, but I was doing it and just like wondering like, wow, this world we're in, oh my God, like it is, you know, I'm going to start crying because it's so amazing. Like, and I realized no matter how much I could imagine, no matter how much I could daydream, I could have, you know, vivid imagery and imagination of mountains the size of the earth on planets that are trillions of light years away from here. And all of that pales in comparison to what is in between, that in between zone. So, you know, I'm imagining, I realized that, and I somehow went to sleep. My body started going to sleep while I was in that, like, oh my God, anything is possible kind of mentality. And the body fell asleep and this stayed awake. But it didn't stay awake aware of all this. It went into a portal like a Stargate. And in that place was everything, literally everything. And I started going into it and I got freaked out. I got
Can I
literally
ask if you scared you?
the first time that I remember consciously doing it, I was so afraid because, I mean, what is it? What is that place? What do you call it? You know, like I got so scared that I shook and I came out of it and I was like, but I realized that I could do it. And so I made an effort. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep practicing it.
I remember Joe Dispenza saying the first couple of times, like when he was walking through a physical wall, like he would start to come close to it, and he took him like 4 or 5 times before it was familiar enough for him to, and then he went through it. You know, like I don't know at what level, but you know, in his mind or physically, but yeah, it's scary. The unknown is scary, you know. And after
But only
personally,
at first. But that's the
at
thing.
first,
It was
yes.
only scary at first, but I could have I remember a very defining moment at that point of like being so scared that I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm not going back there again. But at the same time, there was this innate knowing that I don't know how I could even put into words, but there was a part of me that, even though I was afraid and scared and all that, there's a part of me that still trusted it. And it knew that I had to go back to it. I knew that I had to go back into whatever that was. And I also knew that I wasn't just going to go back into it. I knew that I was going to make a habit and a practice out of going into that no matter what until I'm either told or given some kind of guidance not to, whatever. But essentially what I'm saying is I made a decision that I was all in. And it was that level of devotionary commitment that was required in order for me to traverse the terrain or lack of terrain, you could say, of what is in between that zone. And that's what I was saying, where it's crazy because every single one of us has that. It's in all of us, whether it's the homeless guy on the side of the street or the king of Timbuktu, right? Like, doesn't matter, rich or poor, or old or young, like none of that matters. It's in every single human being. Okay, not when you use human being. I don't even know what those words mean. It is in every single one of us. We all have.
If you incarnated into this gig, you have it.
Everyone. And that's why. So, and beautiful thing that I found. Okay, so a lot of that is the pituitary and the pineal gland starting to be activated and starting to come online, right? But it's not just the pituitary gland or the pineal gland. We have glands all through our body, and each one of them, we have the ability to consciously dwell in every single one of these glands and activate the latent, dormant, they call it junk DNA potential that is in all of them. And we have the ability to activate them from that same level of consciousness. So for me, I started doing that and being conscious of it. And then I realized that I could become more conscious of all this. And so I began, instead of just being some soul temporarily animating a human body, I chose to become so conscious of whatever this bioelectric force is that's allowing me to have this human experience, that I chose to prioritize having a relationship with it above and beyond anything else. And bit by bit, it showed me how to take that relationship to levels that I could have never and still can't imagine with my quote unquote human awareness.
So when you're walking around, not only with that as intellectual knowledge, but in the trenches, real experiences of it, it must be interesting when you encounter people and you know that they got it and you try to share it, and maybe a few of them will try it a little bit, but it's like until they have that experience, for them it's just, something Seth said. What could you say to people that would have them stay the course? Because if what you're saying is true, if anybody realized what you're saying right now, what would take priority over developing that ability and that awareness? What, a binge on Netflix, the Super Bowl, the restaurant, sex, whatever? How do you get? That's been your challenge, right? To get to, like, for people to stick with it. If they stuck with it, they would experience it.
I mean, so the way I would address that simply is, what do you think happens when you die? Like, you see people like, and even me, and I always tell people, I'm like, it's so funny how people think they know so much, right? And a lot of people listen to me and be like, oh, this guy thinks he knows. I am a lightning rod.
Yeah. You froze. Okay, you're back. You're back. The last word you said was lightning rod.
Essentially, I was just going to say something like, I essentially am a lightning rod for being humbled, and that's by choice. I'm not here to have these experiences and then become aware of them and think that I'm great or something, think that I'm amazing and that I'm special. No,
Right.
I'm here because I know that this energy is what is really happening. And I want to deepen my relationship with it while I'm in this form. So I don't care about anything external
Right.
to the degree that I care about this. And as a result, I care about everything external.
Right. You got your priorities straight.
Because to not consciously make this a priority is to basically go like that to death, right? Because we're alive and then we leave this body. And what do you think happens? You know, most people I talk to, I don't know. Or if they're religious, you know, whatever religion of choice, somebody's going to save them. But there's no, okay, what would it look, feel, sound, taste, smell? What would it be like for you as this person you temporarily are to take full responsibility for creating a conscious relationship with whatever it is that's allowing you to have this experience? And the answer is
Programs.
impossible, but the answer is it feels something like the best feeling you've ever felt times infinity. It's worth more than all the gold in every planet and every part of every multiverse that ever existed. It's bigger, better, greater, better, beyond all that. It is infinite. It is invaluable. There's incategorical. I'm gonna make up words now.
So hey, that's how the words got made up in the first place.
That's true. I heard the English language is a war language. It was born, it's a polyglot. It came out of war strategy. I'm like, ooh, okay.
Right.
Let's bring some love to this language then, because so it's that simple. It's that simple. We think we know something. We don't know anything. And what we do know is this invisible bioelectric field that's animating us. It's what knows. And it's allowing us to think we know something. It's that simple. It's all it is. So look at the world. We see what living out of harmony with nature's law does. Look around. I mean, the first time I got in an airplane and flew up and looked down and saw the grids that our species makes, I was like, holy shit. And just seeing it I'm like, who would do this? Who would do this is somebody or something that is so disconnected from what allows life to go on in the first place that they would ignorantly try to go against the grain, go against the flow. I mean, you have to be totally dumb or totally ignorant to go against the flow of life, because it's so big, it's infinite, that no matter how wealthy you are, or how smart you are, or how much power you think you have, it is nothing in the face of everything. So why would you even act like you have something going on? You know, and it's that level of, and I do it, okay, and believe me, I have moments where I think I know something, but because I've made a commitment to let it kick. All right, let's bring this all back to you.
Yes.
Your pain. You feel where I'm coming at with all this, and do you feel any degree of relaxation to the degree where the pain isn't so severe?
Yeah, when we were doing that before, I immediately went into student mode and was doing what you were saying, and I felt a shift. And I also remember in the holotropic class, which you may want to at the end put a link when you post this video for people to do, because the more that do it, the better it is for everyone. And that's a great metaphor there somewhere. I remember when my body started lighting up and it was buzzing, that I could feel it going to the stomach. There were two areas that it was almost like some nanobots, not nanobions, going in there and working on those areas. And it was a very interesting experience. Yeah.
So here's the main thing for you, and we've had this discussion a lot. The world doesn't want us to slow down and be passive, right? This 9 to 5, the matrix, you say, it wants us to be addicted to it, to be caught up in it, to be stressed out by it, to feel like we're obligated to fulfill a role that it's projecting at us. And most of us take the bait, and unconsciously, we don't even really but if you have any semblance of knowing that there's something so much greater than what you're used to perceiving with your 5 human senses, then making a habit to build a conscious relationship to whatever that is becomes a priority. And the more you do that, Lewis, in this life, and the more you're just going to feel this great, infinite, coherent field of creativity that it's got all our backs. It's got us. It's there for us. It just wants us to come up to meet it.
Right. And so I need a mechanism, whether it's like, I'll give you an example of how that whole flow started. I was just getting ready to share. What I noticed I was doing was, even though I got to peace and took ownership of the characters in my movie, and a great example of that is an analogy my friend gave me, where you and I are sitting on a park bench next to Charles Dickens, and we're watching him read his book, A Christmas Carol, and we were watching him get really aggravated and irritated of this character in the book named Scrooge, and he's getting pissed off and he's ripping pages and he's punching and we're like, dude, Chucky, you wrote the book, man. That's your character. And like, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. So like, what I was doing was I was ripping these characters in my movie a new one, and then I started to get good at catching myself doing that, and then I took it back, like, and so and there comes a point where I don't even rip them a new one anymore. So what would you like? How do we remind ourselves? I guarantee you, there's tons of people watching this video. If they could just remember, like, remember that thing Seth said 72 minutes into that seminar? Do it now. Like, what can we build? Like, do I have to set the timer on my phone to go off every like 30 minutes and just like for 28 days until the new habit? How do we cultivate that habit of doing that when we know that doing that is the answer to everything?
It's a great question. Absolutely. So one, commitment. When you have some knowing that this is a possibility, not a possibility, when you have some knowing that this is the predominant reality that there is, period, you got to be committed. You got to first determine, like, okay, I was just an embryo not that long ago. I was a little tiny amphibious reptile looking little tiny thing in my mother's egg.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but to be technical, when people watch the interview with Ra, when we were just an asshole.
Yes, that's what he says, right? Yeah, we're an asshole. We were right, and that's, everyone thinks they know so much. You're just an asshole. Come on.
Well, you got to tell them, because that's what Ross said was the first part of the body that develops from when the cells get.
You're right. It's cutting out. It's cutting out for a second. Yeah, that's so. What is he? I don't remember exactly what he says.
Yes, he said that the very first part of the body that forms is the asshole. And you guys were joking like, well, I guess at some point we were all assholes, and some of us never changed.
Someone's got even better at being assholes, right?
Right. So what you were saying, when we were little reptilian looking little
So yeah,
embryos.
objectivity, right? When it's so easy for us to think we know something, like meaning we think we know who we are. Oh, I think I'm Seth, and oh, this is, this is my microphone, this is my computer, this is my hand, these are my fingers, these are my glasses. We think that this stuff is us, right? But it's only an extension of what we really are. So chosen objectivity becomes important, right? We got to realize, okay, there's something way deeper than what we're seeing on the surface. And we're going to make a prioritized effort to focus on it. And the more we focus on it, okay, because we're so committed, we're all in no matter what. And it's okay, we might forget, but as soon as we forget, we've reminded ourselves, which could be by the phone, you can do however, you just got to keep going until you remember. And a lot of it is, the best thing that I would suggest is, and you don't have to do it every morning and every night when you go to sleep, you go right past this door that I'm talking about, but you can do it during the day. You can be wide awake, lay down, instead of, meditating or whatever, try to go to sleep, but remember that you're going to stay awake. So start with that, like, let yourself go to sleep, but set a knowing inside of yourself where you're like, okay, my body's going to go to sleep, but I'm going to remind myself to remember to stay awake while my body goes to sleep.
All right.
And you just,
okay. We can do that also to create a community of people where that's the common denominator, that at least that we all share. And if anyone goes unconscious or forgets, we've already given permission for someone to, like, hey, and so we can support each other. Also, I'm looking at the clock right now. We got, in 10 minutes, it'll be coming up on 2 hours. And I did have one more thing that I wanted to throw out there.
let's do that.
And yeah, and because I think it's really valuable to the people. And I will, my takeaway from this, the number one takeaway from this call from me is going to be, okay, what can I do to remember to do this thing that I know if I do it long enough with enough momentum and enough consistency, I'm gonna experience the larger truth where all the answers lie that I'm looking for. So that's the big, thank you for that minder, that to remind me about that. And, dumb wears off. Maybe it takes 20, 30 times to hear it before it like takes root.
And even because we went live, just so you know, too, like, because we're doing this publicly, this is like an experiment, doing a live there. You can text, like, I want you to get what you really came here to get. So if you didn't get that out of this, we'll just text back and forth. And
Okay.
I'll leave voice memos. So.
All right. So this is the question. I'm going to tell you the scenario, and then I want to ask if this is happening to you. So and this is the best way. I'll hold on 1 second. I got these things right here. Give me a second. So here you are. You're an energetic. When you meet someone that you hook up with and go into relationship, your energy field at the time is this shape, and theirs is this shape. And even if it's full of dysfunctions and good and less, well, I don't want to put labels on it. At that moment, you guys are a perfect fit. And then one does some work, and all of a sudden your shape changes, your energy field changes, and it's no longer a fit, and you don't fit anymore. And then you realize, why is there all this discord in the relationship? Because we're just not fitting anymore. And yet you have memories of how it used to be, and you're trying to get back to that, but that's not available anymore. So, and these two people had a child, and then, all of a sudden you realize you're getting further and further apart, but you still got a child, and you have a model on how to raise the child, and this person has a model on how to raise the child, and then it's not the same. especially if someone's moving along much quicker and awakening quicker and the other one's staying stuck. In this world at this time, at least 20 years ago, if this happens to be a woman, she has a lot more power in the courts than this guy, the way things are. So her way goes. And in my situation, my daughter was weaponized against me. Like she was doing things to send me a very, very strong unconscious communication using our child. And there was a lot of damage that got done. So while I was raising her, it was this constant experience of, well, I guess I don't get to have my way. But yet, what am I going to do? Like just give up? Or, all right, honey, we'll go to McDonald's and we'll get the chicken nuggets because there's no fucking way you're going to eat this avocado and this, this beautiful thing that I made. So, and that was a very, very sad experience. And now as an adult, a lot of her being is there and a lot of that stuff is still underneath. And yet I'm having to deal with it, and I'm okay with it. Obviously not completely okay with it, but I understand this is her journey and this and that. And so I know you have a 9-year-old, and my question is, does River ever display any lower vibrational, so dysfunctional stuff that you see that he's picking up from the other side when you're with him? And what do you do when you see that happens? Because this is something a lot of people that they were unconscious when they got married and it was a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit when they got married. And then somewhere along the line, it wasn't. And they got kids. And how do you navigate through that intersection? Because the mistake that I made was whenever I saw her eating poorly, I was unwittingly dosing her with this energy, like, it's not okay, it's not okay. And I realized it would have been better to just give her if she was going to eat the nuggets anyway, I might as well have been happy about it because that's all I had left. You
were trying to feed her organic and give her all the health stuff.
I used to make all this steamed organic stuff, putting them in Tupperware, sending it to the mom so she didn't have to lift a finger. I did that for years. And I found out one day that as soon as she got it, she was dumping it all in the garbage can and taking her to McDonald's. Oh. I was like, oh my God, all that work, all that money, all that. Oh, man. Yeah. So, and I got a tongue like that, bro.
All right. I'm laughing with you, obviously, you know that. All right. So I love that you share that. I love the vulnerability. Okay. So now, okay, let's acknowledge this from a human perspective, right? Or from a being perspective. Sucks, right? It's intense. It's not fun. Yeah. But we know that doesn't work. So we are consciously making a choice, even despite the difficulty, that we are going to love greater than the frequency of dysfunction, of fear, of inability to interrelate. Like, that's it. And it's a skill, and it's one that will keep coming up forever. But when you learn to trust it, because you trust in life, you love life so much, you're good with it. You're good. You feel how everything is perfect. The universe is one great big accounting system, and everything is exactly where it needs to be. It couldn't mess it up if you tried. Like, everything is absolutely imperfectly perfect the way it is. And to the degree that we just accept it, do the best we can, but not to the degree that we stress ourselves out. Because as soon as take action, do what you can. But if you're doing it to the degree that it's creating too much stress response in you, you're disempowering yourself.
And I'm psychically like damaging. I'm energetically damaging my daughter too by sending her like these vibes of it's not okay, it's not okay. One of the things that I eventually got to peace was getting to peace with the whole death thing, and it sourced this quote that until you get peace about dying, you're not going to have a lot of peace about living, you know. And so now that I know that it's called the then what game, you know, you play my friend taught me the then what game. I'm like, well, how does that work? And he goes, well, tell me your biggest fear. Well, you know, running out of money. Okay, then what? Well, then I can't pay rent. Well, then what? Well, then I'm out on the street, and then what? Then I'm sitting on a park bench with a newspaper. Well, then what? And then I'm starting to get hungry, and then what? Well, and the then what game always leads to, well, then I die. And then he goes, and he goes, and is that such a big deal? You know, like, so if you really get settled, if you really have a belief about what you think death is and you're at peace about it, which I do, then what's the worst that could happen? And at least that energy, that peace, when you go to try to work things out and implement stuff, it's going to have a much greater chance of implementing any strategy or technique or beingness with the individual from a state of that peace that passeth all understanding than doing it from a state of stress and not okayness and like, yeah. So I mean, that unfortunately, it took about 20 years of her life before I got to that place, of peace, you know. But like, you know, I don't, do you ever have to implement that stuff? Okay, so you guys, so you're not immune from it.
None of us are. We all have to face it. We all have to go through it. What I am, though, is better equipped to deal with it than I used to be. And that's what we get out of doing this work. What's to come, who knows? You know, anything. I mean, I'm open to all possibilities. And in that openness, I know it leaves space for anything, you know.
So basically the answer to anyone's challenge is do this, learn this, and it'll get,
well, just not like we are this is it's more like this is what we really are. This is what we're gonna be. It's what we've been. There's really actually nothing but this, except for this temporary glitch that thinks it's everything but that. And that's all it really, because when you all of a sudden pop back and you disperse into infinity and it captures you and holds you, you realize you were never disconnected to begin with.
So there's a lot of effort. There's a lot of effort I notice out there by they, which is really the unresolved parts of us that created characters to play the role of them. There's a lot of effort out there to make sure that we don't discover this and to keep us distracted. And so that's something I imagine someone would have to overcome or deal with in staying on target. Have you found that?
So there's so many different layers and levels and ways to perceive this. And down here on this level, absolutely, there are extreme forces competing for your attention, you know. And again, we're bioelectromagnetic beings. We are literally bioelectricity pulsing through us. Like the whole thing, electric personality, couldn't be any more true.
Right. I get good vibes from that person, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
so we are literal electric beings. Now, when you take a piece of artificial technology and you stay focused right on it all the time, you're taking your bioelectric or your organic bioelectromagnetic energy and you're plugging it right in to artificial technology. Look at how much people watch the screen, right? Many quote unquote conscious people know that
It was only 30
Yeah.
seconds.
Many conscious people might have heard the saying television programming, right?
Yeah. Television. Yeah.
Programming. So we're being told a vision and program. But this is, see, the interesting thing about this is the more you choose to take responsibility for choosing to identify with yourself as whatever is causing your heart to beat, the less consent you give to these external, seemingly
Right.
external forces that are competing for your attention.
You don't even have to get rid of them. They'll dissolve by default because the new neural pathways and the new consciousness is just focused on this. And that eventually there's like no vacancy. They check out, like there's.
From this level, it's predator and prey, right? From a level of duality, from a level of disconnection, they're the predator, you're the prey, or vice versa, whatever. It could, like, we're in these extremes, we're on all these dual aspects of being. But the more you choose to create a relationship with what is allowing you to be, that stuff just purges.
That reminder was worth this whole call, this whole session for me. That anything else is just icing on the cake.
Okay. Well, I'll keep giving you icing. You have a direct line to me.
Thank you, sir. And
I love you, and I'm super proud of you. And that's why, for everyone watching too, I like, if somebody just was like, "Oh, let's do this live," I wouldn't have done it. I did this live with you because I know how capable you are, and I know how far you've come, and I'm proud, and I'm grateful, and I'm also a student. I learn just as much from you as you do for me.
I have a joke I tell people, standing in creator of my own reality, after like I do this massive flow to someone in the spirit of, let me share some perspectives and some insights that, you're looking at things, like on this little thing here, but when you go out here, see the answer is right up there, right? And so you're right here, but when you get a bigger perspective, look, the answer becomes available. And after like a big flow of sharing perspective and insights, I'm like, holy shit. By the way, thank you. There's nowhere in my day planner that I was going to have this flow today. So this is totally spontaneous. And guess who needed to hear this stuff more than you? I thank you for being a character of my movie. And I'm sorry to make you go through things that you had these issues that then had me have this profound flow to you just so I could hear it myself.
Oh my God.
And so thank you, Seth. And I'm sorry for making you go through everything you had to go through so that you could have these goodies to deliver back to me. So please forgive me.
I'm so grateful that you're sorry for it. And I'm so sorry that you're grateful and blah, blah, blah. But yeah. Oh man.
All right, man. All right.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you. Yes.
Wait, I'll give you one last goodie before I go. It's I love making up new words. Remember that? So I know that everyone's got an auric field around them. They're walking around. Everyone's got an aura. And sometimes when you get next to someone, your auras overlap, and if they got some stuff, you can get good at feeling what's going on with them because now they're in your space and you can start feeling some changes. And hey man, are you up? I'm feeling a lot of anger right now. I didn't have that a minute ago. Are you upset? Yeah, man, my brother just, And so at all times, we're having an orgy. So we need to practice safe auric sex, so anyway,
well,
we'll leave on that note.
All right.
I hope this makes a difference to people. I know, a lot of people there. I got kids from a broken marriage. A lot of people got some health issues. Yeah. Hopefully what we covered today will remind us of a larger place from which to deal with these things. So it almost is irrelevant what your situation is or what the story is. It's beginning to look like the answer is going to come from the same place. And if you cultivate that ability, if you dedicate and commit to that ability and just stick with it, eventually something magical can happen as it has for you.
And I guess let's end on this note too, because you mentioned it before, but for everybody watching and for people paying attention, yes, you are alone, but you're also not. And
Right.
there's people, like, there's certain things that only you alone can do. So none of us are exempt
Right.
from that. But you are not alone when it comes to, there are many other beings that are in this form that are here truly wanting the best for you. So here we are, we're busy, but we're here. Like, we are doing a lot and we're getting ready. Where I live in Maine right now, we have a community of over 3,000 people, and we get together in person every single week. And then once a month, we have these huge parties in person. I've made more friends in the past year than I have in 100 lifetimes.
It sounds like a big orgy, if you
It
ask me.
is. It's totally it's an integrity, total safe orgy where everybody wants the best. So there is support, there is community. And if there isn't community, build one.
Yes, yes.
All we did, 1 year ago, Christian Northrup, Dr. Christian Northrup, she just had people come over to her house, and it was the first time people were like around each other without a mask in a long time. It was the first time people had been around another living person, and they're crying and they're going through it. It's like, but we just kept doing it. We kept meeting, we kept coming together, and it kept getting stronger and stronger. And now, of course, there's things that come up, people trigger each other, there's all kinds, but there's an unspoken and a spoken agreement that we're in it to win. We are going to stand by each other unconditionally with healthy boundaries. Meaning, like, okay, if somebody's being too much and they're doing something, no, there's not a free permit to be a sociopath or a narcissist or anything. Like, you have some problems, those are your problems. Deal with it. I love you unconditionally, but that's your problem. You deal with it. But when somebody can come to the table with authenticity, with sincerity, with truth, and you can see it in their eyes, you can hear it in their voice, then there's a place at the table for everyone. So I want people to know that we're coming together, we're creating unconditional love, because there's enough of us now. I think the world's changing so fast now because enough of us have remembered that we truly are this force, this energy. And yeah, okay, like, let's leave the politics out of it. Let's leave the beliefs. Like, no matter what you think, no matter what you believe, no matter what you have done, the sooner you prioritize creating a connection to this, the sooner the world is going to change to reflect what that internal relationship actually is. And that supersedes all pain and suffering.
What a beautiful way to end, my friend.
All right, you've got my number. Leave me messages. I'll talk to you soon.
Peace.
Thank you, everybody. Peace be with you.